Hello there, I am back and I am reviewing a new book. My name is Robin Norgren. I'm a former third grade teacher, and my purpose is to give you some information about how to pick books for your K through third grade reader. Okay, so here is a series of books. It's called Mia Mayhem, and it is a undercover superhero girl, and it's built like a chapter book, right? It has 119 pages, and it is a series of 13 books, which is good to know, because especially if this is a series that your child likes, it can keep you in books for a little while, right? Now, I say this to say, I'm noticing that what tends to happen is that we buy a book, we check that there's a series, and then we just kind of hand the book to our kid and say, here you go, enjoy the book. The problem with this is, and why we have such an issue, well, one of the reasons we have such an issue with literacy, is just because your child can decode the word, be able to read what the word says, does not mean that they understand what the words mean. And this is where we're getting into a lot of trouble as parents and getting angry with teachers, because why doesn't my child understand what they're reading? Because they don't understand. Because believe it or not, we still need to actually sit alongside them, see words that we know they clearly don't know what they mean, even though they're saying them perfectly fine, and help them to understand what they mean, okay? So I did a video, make sure and look for it, I'll go ahead and link it as well, about the different types of readers. So this is for what we call an emerging reader, which means that it's about 6 to 7 years old, so first grade, second grade, and I would say just right up front, this I think would very nicely work with a first or second grader, even a third grader that may still be having trouble with reading fluency, okay? So here it is. It's called Mia Mayhem Learns to Fly. I've made a couple notes here. It's a girl superhero. We love that. It's a black girl. We love that. It's a chapter book, and I will say to you that it's a decent chapter book. If you've seen other videos, sometimes I don't like chapter books because you get inside and really there's just a bunch of pictures, but this actually flows quite nicely between having the words on the page, and it actually does engage this picture so that, again, if a child is not really understanding what she's reading or he's reading, they can look at this book, this side of the book, and they can figure it out. Again, something you have to remind your child to do, right? Okay, so something else, it's a scholastic book, so this would be something that you, or a scholastic edition. So you'd find this at many times at your scholastic book fairs, libraries, bookstores, used bookstores and the like. So the other thing that I do like about it is it actually says on the back what type of reader this is good for. This is amazing. This is amazing. I wish all books had this on the back. It would be so helpful for parents, right? Okay, so the other thing I want to mention is that there are a good amount of adjectives and adverbs in this book. Why is that worth mentioning? Because as a third grade teacher, I cannot tell you how about 90% of my students had no idea what adjectives and adverbs were, and my hypothesis on this is they were reading books that really didn't have a lot of adjectives and adverbs, and so therefore they never engaged with them, so they didn't know what they were. And so here's why I say this, because even when I explain to you, well, an adjective describes a noun. Well, if you haven't been looking at sentences where that is happening, that does not make sense to you, okay? And one other thing I wanted to mention is the themes in this book. So I read the book, obviously. The themes in the book: teamwork, problem solving, friendship, respect. So really, really nice story, interesting storyline. Even though there's a girl on the cover, I think it would work for both boys and girls, because again, everybody, like, boys can read books with girls on the cover, right? Okay, do I need to say it? I hope not. All right, so here's what we have. We'll get inside of it. Here's the table of contents. It's 10 chapters. As I said, it's 119 pages. So you might be thinking, well, how long can a book like this last? Like if you're having your child read it about 15 to 20 minutes a day, you would have this book read in no time, right? Right. If your child is really has a high word count when they're, reading, that is great. Here's the problem that we're running into. They may be able to decode these words very quickly, but when you get into words such as chaos and exactly, and even the word mayhem, right? It's her last name, but it actually has a message within the story of why that's a good name for her, right? But if you're not talking with your child about, well, what does that mean, mayhem? Or what does this mean, curious? Or what's a clinic, right? So if you're actually slowing down this reading process for your child, and I know, we love telling our friends that they read so many books. The problem is, and I keep going back to this, they are reading a lot of words. Are they understanding what they're reading? And do they understand, even in the context of when people, a lot of questions when we ask children is, what do you think's going to happen next? Or what was the name of the building that they were in? Now, those are fine questions, but things like reading this, one of the sentences, let's say, that I find on page 22. I looked around to see if any of my peers looked as nervous as me. Okay, here's 2 words that I hear in that sentence that may or may not be going over to the head of your child. Peers and nervous, right? And wouldn't this be a wonderful conversation? What does it mean to have a peer? Let's look this up in the dictionary. What does it mean to be nervous? Why would they need to be nervous? Have you ever been nervous before? So again, you're taking something that seemingly is like, okay, sit down, read 15, 20 minutes a day. You read your book? Okay, great. Go ahead and move on and do whatever it is you're doing, whatever they get to do after they do their reading. Here is a great way to not only engage with your child, but engage with the passages that are within this book to then build on for later, right? Because that's the key. Not just we're finishing up these books, we're finishing up the series, but then when you find another series that may on the surface not even seem like the same type of material, but you can compare and contrast. And there again is another concept that I was finding we were having great trouble with in 3rd grade, the comparing and contrasting, and not simply within just the genre of the book that you're reading, but across other passages that you're reading. Because again, going back to what 3rd grade is the predictor of whether or not children are going to excel, graduate high school, all of those things, and how well a school is doing, right? When you're thinking about the state test that will happen in 3rd grade, the state test does not take 2 identical reading passages and gives it to your child. That's not what's happening. So let's say they're reading on snowflakes. There's going to be one passage that's going to be this light story about snowflakes. And then there's going to be this other passage that actually talks in a more technical way about snowflakes. And then your child, this is just an example, obviously, I don't know what's on the test, just an example of then we are asking your child to compare and contrast 2 things that we know are similar, but they're not identical. And so then if all we've done is just compare and contrast within one book and not compare it and contrast with factual information, you could use TV shows, you could use something you're listening to on the radio, that's really not the point. But to have the ability to go, oh, there's nothing in there because it doesn't read the exact same way. You guys, I hope these videos are helping you. It's definitely helping me to kind of like parse out what it was about being in third grade that has really changed my life as a teacher.